hello.
Hello, David.
Alistair, how are you?
I'm very well there. Is that your
Good.
new pad in Los Angeles
I'm
behind
just
you?
relaxing in the UNN green room. This is the UNN green room, so I'm just relaxing in here just now before the show starts.
Yes, yes. I think some people will believe you as well, but
Well, I know.
I didn't
I
know you could
wish.
play a grand piano. Yeah.
I
So,
can do a lot of things. Well, hopefully we'll get you some more numbers. If anyone's coming on, they'll give you a watch. Alistair, how are you anyway? You all right?
yeah, things are good. Things are very good here. They're always good in the AFFG Nerve Centre, and what we want to talk about is how things are with you, because and I know there will only be so much that you'll be able to talk about,
I'm
because
so happy to talk about it. It's not. It's honestly. It's such a nothing burger, Alistair. So happy to talk about it.
really, really, well, feel free to speak about as much as you want, and as much as you think legally that you're able to speak about. But just for the sake of the viewers, many of our viewers will already know you as somebody who has been involved for the last 2 years with your organisation UNN, or Unity News Network, and in that, especially during the last 18 months or so, you and also Carl Pearson, who we spoke to last week, you've been heavily involved in simply trying to bring out hidden elements of the medical situation that we're all under, the biosecurity state, and emphasising the negative elements of it, and also parts of the establishment narrative that we don't hear elsewhere, but all from a very sensible, straightforward, common sense kind of point of view. And here in Glasgow, we've been having, every month or so, there's been an anti-lockdown march. I don't quite know how to categorise it, if it's how they call it, if it's pro-freedom march, anti-lockdown march, whatever. You probably know better, but there was one on Saturday. That's Saturday the 19th here in Glasgow, and would you like to take it from there and just tell
Yeah.
us your thoughts on it?
So the anti-lockdown movement is quite an organic thing up in Scotland. I think it's important to stress that. There's not one specific organised or anything. I mean, I've organised demonstrations around Scotland and the UK, but the ones on Glasgow just tends to be everybody gets together and has a wee walk in the city centre, and everybody kind of knows the script. So it started about 2 weeks ago. I think there was a rally down in Ayr, and you'll have probably seen the footage of that, and that marked a real shift in the rhetoric of the police. And the police actually arrested people on that day. They went in pretty heavy, and they lifted people on the grounds of taking part in an illegal procession. So on Saturday, we were gathering in Glasgow Green, as always happened. And at the start, the police were there. Well, a lot more police than usual. They had cameras and they had a megaphone, and they were saying, "You are taking part in an illegal procession. If you take
Ah,
part in an illegal procession, you will be arrested." So that's fine. Then we all got out and we all started walking. Now, up until this point, the police had been facilitating these, because usually if you're protesting or demonstrating about something, you don't want to necessarily involve the authorities. So what the police normally do is they facilitate it. If people do start breaking the law in terms of, smashing windows or blocking streets, then, that's a different story altogether. But on this occasion, the police came in with a very different tone, and I then saw people at the front being spoken to by a sergeant. So I went up and joined them, and the sergeant then said to me, "Look, you're taking part in an illegal procession. If you continue to take part in this illegal procession, you will be arrested." So we then get to George Square, and that sergeant is walking around. He's telling people, and he says to me, "You're going to get arrested." And I was like, "Well, if you're going to arrest me, please do it now." And he said, "Well, I'm not going to make a martyr of you." So they waited a wee while, and then lo and behold, there was people on the other side started getting arrested, and then he came to me and said, "Right, I'm arresting you," and blah blah blah, and I had the cuffs put on, and I was put in the back of the van. And what they said was, "Look, we're going to arrest you, but we're going to let you go," and they did say that beforehand, or with conditions. So they took us in, and I was hoping, we would go in, would maybe be 2 or 3 hours, and then we would get out. It took 8 hours, for the paperwork to get done, and as part of that paperwork, there was a condition that I am not allowed to attend, organise or facilitate any demonstrations in Scotland. So effectively banned from campaigning in Scotland. And this is a technique that Police Scotland have now started to use, because there was one guy who had those conditions, went to Glasgow on Saturday. He was then arrested on the Sunday, kept overnight in custody, and then it got in front of a judge, and the judge is like, well, why are you here? This is nothing. And then he got released.
Well, that's extraordinary. Now, I know I've been on 2 of these marches, and all that happens is people just rock up at the Nelson Monument on Glasgow Green. Yeah. And the one I was on, there would be at least 800, maybe 1,200 people there. Yeah. And then everybody just heads off, and it's a very peaceful walk, really. You would hardly even call it a march. And people are just in a kind of fairly thin line, and they just snake through the streets of Glasgow. And the one I was at, I think there was 2 or 3 police cyclists on bicycles at the front of the march. And if I can recall rightly, I'm presuming that they would just say into the folks at the front, where do you want to go? And they would say, oh, we'll go up here, and then we'll turn down here, and then we'll go up there. And the police were just there just to like just so when they were walking across a main road, for example, they could hold the traffic back, and just things like that. And it was all very peaceful, and they got on very well, and there's absolutely no conflict whatsoever, or not even a hint of it. It was just very much a family outing with people with children and everything, and totally non-party political. Like no well, there's a few people who you could tell were against Nicola Sturgeon, but certainly it wasn't pro one particular party or another. It was just like very normal people in Glasgow just walking on a very peaceful march. And it looks like, and I don't know what you've been thinking on this, but they've been getting bigger, slightly bigger.
Yes.
And Sturgeon could be thinking, we don't want these to get any bigger, and we don't want these to get specifically anti-Sturgeon and start putting trouble on us. So she's looking across the waters at her sister, Ardern, know, and Trudeau, and probably trying to learn a few things from them, and think, well, if they can do it, why can't I do it? I mean, what, do you think there's some kind of political motivation here?
100% I do, Alistair, because, as I said, up until this point, the police were fine with it. Because why would they really be that bothered? Why would they be filling up cells? Why would they be doing all the paperwork for what is a peaceful demonstration, and what is people just expressing their democratic right? Now, the thing about the specific law, procession. Now, a procession is like an Orange Walk or a Republican Walk. This is why this law was brought in. So you can't just all of a sudden decide you're going to do that. But this isn't a procession. This is a demonstration. The 2 are very, very different. There is a difference, because it's not organized, it's organic. But they're just kind of using a technicality. So I think the numbers have grown. The police have decided that they're not having anything to do with it. And the reason now, what you could argue is, but you are causing inconvenience, blah blah blah, which is fair enough. But would the police do what they have been doing if this was a BLM rally? Would they be doing this if this was a pro-refugee rally, or let's just say an organic and spontaneous pro-Nicola Sturgeon demonstration? Do you think the police would arrest people for taking part in an illegal procession supporting Nicola Sturgeon?
Well, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. No, it's a rhetorical question. They certainly wouldn't. And even the idea of causing disturbance on the particular places where the march walks, I mean, they're quiet streets, or the pedestrianised streets like down Argyle Street, up Buchanan Street and so on. There's not actually any disturbance. In fact, you're actually bringing greater footfall to the centre of Glasgow, which certainly needs it. Oh my goodness me! These days, post-apocalyptic COVID shutdown, it definitely needs as many people in there as possible. So actually, I mean, there's no, they can't say that it's held up the traffic on the M8 or something like that. It's nothing like that. It's even just beginning in Glasgow Green and walking down round that side of the East End of Glasgow and so on. The streets are largely empty, so there's no, they can't use that argument at all.
Exactly, and in many ways the police doing this is actually, is how do you radicalize members of the public by doing things like this? I also got the sense that from speaking as well with some of the rank and file constables and the others, they knew that it was a farce. They'd never heard of this before. But they will follow the orders of their sergeant. And this is the problem with the police is they have a hive mindset and they will do what they're told, even if it's wrong and they know it's wrong. They're not going to lay themselves down in the street and say, I'm not doing this. They'll go along with it. But so it only takes one sergeant or one high up officer to say, look, let's do something about these demonstrations.
Yeah, I know, they go along with it to an extent that, bring back the old 1970s coppers who never did anything and did it wrongly and would let you off all the time and wouldn't actually bother. I mean, half the time, of course, I'm only joking. There's problems there, but going the other extreme is ridiculous because during the summer of 2020, right, myself and a colleague are sitting on a park bench talking on a lovely summer's day, and it was one of the parks here in central Glasgow, and these two coppers were coming down every park bench, asking people not to sit on the park bench and to move along and to move away. And I thought, if I was a senior officer in the two of them there, I would say to the junior, look, I know we've been told to do this, but let's just have a walk in the park. I mean, I'm not going to be telling him to get off a park bench, and I'd advise that you don't either. And I'm sure in the 1970s, coppers would just behave like that. But now you must go there in the morning to get the briefing. But nobody can sit on a park bench, and they're like, right, got to make sure nobody sits on a park bench.
Don't forget this, Pete. I know, and that really just this is the whole problem of what the last 2 years has done. Is it's given power to all the wrong people, and they just love it. Like Sturgeon loves it, Jacinda Ardern loves it. The very people who say that they are the most tolerant people are the most intolerant, and I don't use this term lightly, but fascistic in the way in which they go about their business. They love it. They love the power and the way they abuse it and have no humility. See, that's the thing about none of these. They've got no humility. It's not about serving others. It's no humility. One thing I will say is all the police in the custody suite were very polite. They were very courteous and very, very professional. So no issues there whatsoever. But it's just a total waste of time. But this is what they're doing. Look at what they're doing in Canada. They criminalize. I mean, they're seizing bank accounts of people who made donations. A single mother who works in a cafe made a $50 donation, and she's had her bank account shut down.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely horrific. And from the worst thing that I see is that our politicians in this country are not speaking against that.
No,
I mean,
no,
imagine if, and of course it wouldn't happen, but imagine if Trump did that. And his opponents, he said, you can't crowdfund for my opponents.
Well, and you imagine Trump had shut down the bank accounts of BLM, or the very things that they accused Trump of, and all these other people, regardless of what you think of Trump, they do themselves.
Exactly.
They shut you down, they arbitrarily arrest you. It's the hypocrisy of these people is just, it's off the chart. I mean, Trudeau was on talking about Canada stands opposed to authoritarianism. I mean, you can't mark these people's neck with a blowtorch.
That's so true, and they get away with so much by just being so incredibly brazen about it, in a way that a normal person would never have the nerve to even try to do, and would be ashamed to stand up and say these things. I mean, I saw him, and also there's some woman who's sprung to everybody's attention now, who's the deputy prime minister or something like that.
Chrystia Freeland. Oh, she's just off the charts.
Oh, totally. And the way to get your bank account unfrozen is not to take part in these processions or these demonstrations. I mean, and this is Canada as well. And I've been having this conversation with other people, but the thing is, Trudeau is not. He's clearly not working from a kind of the point of view that you and I and others are working from. He's just not. There's nothing organically Canadian there. It's basically globalist ideology imposing itself top down on the people.
Yeah.
And whereas people like ourselves are very much, I mean, we think of ourselves as kind of live and let live people, really.
Yeah.
But they're like, if you don't agree with us, you're wrong, and we're going to stop you even being heard.
And I don't think you should underestimate just the level of scrutiny. Like Justin, I mean, Justin Trudeau have blackmail on him, you know, or something like that.
Oh, he's got
like
blackface on him.
Well, that's very true, very true. Or like the whole, you know, or they've been pictured in compromising situations, or they've been told, look, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. So they're totally corrupt. They're totally bought. And unfortunately, though, the masses, because of the media that runs cover for them, they think, well, maybe it needs again, this is the issue. People don't know about the World Economic Forum. People don't know about the families that exert huge influence. You know, they don't know about it. So they just think it must be for our good. And it's frightening because we know there's a hidden agenda to this.
Yeah. Yeah, and the hidden agenda is often not so hidden, because the World Economic Forum put out a tweet yesterday saying that cash that is far more suitable now for I've got that somewhere. I'll bring it up actually during the program, but like cash is on the way out, and we really just need to be concentrating now on digital currency. And this is why one of their minions, or one of the people that they've taught, Justin Trudeau, literally is blocking people's bank accounts if they're digital. In other words, preventing them from in any way. You know,
correct. And the new thing they want to put in is they want to put in a kill switch in every automobile and truck, and they want the central bank digital currency. So basically, if you've been a naughty boy, Alistair, you don't get access to your central bank digital currency this month. And to people that say, oh, well, that's just far-fetched and ridiculous, that's what actually happens in China. That is the system that they have in China. They have a social credit score system. If you don't toe the line, if you don't go along with the agenda, you are deprived of certain elements of life. And again, being a free society, which we once were, that you would have tolerated your opponents, you would have not cut them off from eating. But that's what they're doing. They're cutting off their access to banking, and they would cut off your access to electricity. They would cut off your access to everything, because we are dealing with psychos. I know,
and they would. And if you had told me this a couple of years ago, I would have been like, well, I don't know if people are naturally good.
I know.
But the last 2 years has been an incredible wake-up call in what politicians worldwide, people who look normal, what they're actually thinking deep down, and what they'll actually do if they get the power. I mean, and you're absolutely right. They will, and they'll use the media to brand one a terrorist, for example, and that's what they're doing. They're widening that discussion of what a terrorist is.
Look at the way they weaponized the January the 6th. That there's a lot of different schools of thought about that. It was a lot of people egging them on, but no matter what way you look at it, it was probably a protest that got out of hand. But
I watched it live, and that's all it was.
The way in which, at the end of the day, there was really one person was shot, and that was an unarmed woman who was really just doing nothing wrong, and nobody ever talks about her.
No, and Ashley Babbitt. Yeah, nobody even has heard her name. If that was the other way around, she'd be like, there'd be statues going up here in Glasgow to her.
Exactly, and nobody cares. That's the thing is, look, I admit my politics, you admit your politics, but it is the hypocrisy of our opponents, and maybe in many ways our problem is we are decent people, we do have values, we can't put ourselves in these people's shoes, that they are prepared to lie, they're prepared to be duplicitous, they're prepared to do whatever they need to do to get what they want, which is a very, the end justifies the mean. It is a very Maoist understanding of the world that it just isn't our politics.
Yes, exactly. Well, here's the thing. That's a tweet there. World Economic Forum. This came out yesterday. Dethroning cash.
Yeah.
How digital payments are enabling a shift away from the cash economy. And that was meant to be like a good thing that we were meant to all agree with. But what was interesting is that, every single comment under that was negative to them.
Remember, Alistair, the virus can live on cash as well, was the big one by Nancy Pelosi, and
oh yeah.
That was the so it is all designed because it is all about control. And again, you talk about 2 years ago, the UK used to be a high trust society, a society in which we trusted our establishment, we trusted and that was a good thing. But unfortunately, what the last 2 years has shown is that that's gone now.
Yes.
And especially here in Scotland under Sturgeon, the institutions are totally corrupted now, totally politicised. The education system, the judiciary, the legal system, the NHS, everything is now corrupted by this stench. And what made us a great nation was that the civil service, the public sector, was independent of politics, and that's gone now.
Yes, that's a big danger. David, you've got a show at 8:00 tonight. Would you just want to tell the viewers how they can get onto that?
Join us on dlive.tv/Unity News, and everybody please subscribe to Alistair. Alistair is one of the good guys. He does a brilliant job with A Force for Good, and he's been doing a great job for years and a great community. And yeah, thanks very much for having me on, Alistair, and I hope to meet you again soon.
Thank you, and you've got a guest on tonight, don't you?
Well, I don't. Dr. Hodkinson's actually hopefully this Friday.
All right.
And I know you mentioned that he's brilliant, so hopefully he'll be on this Friday. I've got Dr. Neil McRae. Have you ever had Neil McRae on the show, Alistair?
No.
Do you know Neil McRae?
No.
Neil's a good friend of mine. He's actually from Gourock originally, and he lives down south now. So
all right,
he's a good guy. You should get in touch with him and get Neil on the show. Neil's one of the good guys.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Well, David, best of luck.
Thanks, Alistair.
How often do you broadcast on DLive?
We're on 6 nights a week, and we're going to be doing an afternoon show as well soon. So,
crikey, you don't stop, do you?
We're other people are helping as well. We've got a great team, so we're firing all cylinders. Alistair, absolute pleasure.
Good. Okay, David, till we speak again. Cheers.
Good man, Alistair. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.